Oh, the Golden Stallion's here for you. Oh, man. So, I get a lot of requests. All kinds of show ideas that people want me to do and to talk about. Some of them I can get to. Some of them, I don't know, like they take a lot of time. And right now, pretty much up until after PorkFest, like my time is at an absolute premium. I mean, like I have practically none with everything that I'm trying to finish up. And I hope I hope everybody will be finding it very exciting what I have planned. So, I mean, not just at PorkFest. PorkFest is going to be, it's going to be an honor to be able to speak there. But anyway, projects outside of that I think hopefully you'll find very exciting coming out very, very soon. A lot of stuff that I've been trying to finish up really for the past year. And I'd like to have it all out at once and, even really announce it at PorkFest for that matter. So anyway, I get a lot of suggestions. One of the things that people really love when I talk about is Star Wars. Now, I don't feel like a crushing need, other than for my own nerd ego. I don't feel a crushing need to talk about Star Wars because, and yes, full disclosure, these people this show that I'm about to mention is a sponsor of Sovereign Tech. But, there's Resist the Empire podcast, resisttheempirepodcast.com. They're already doing a hell of a job covering Star Wars. I mean, they're just doing fantastic work there. Okay. But a lot of people ask me to talk about Star Wars often enough and give reviews. And I mean, even though there's other podcasts out there that really do just a tremendous job, I enjoy Jedi Council. I haven't been so pleased with Rebel Force Radio. Sorry, I don't know why that took me a second. I haven't been so pleased with Rebel Force Radio as late. The main thing I like that Rebel Force Radio does, there's two shows. It's actually not even their main show. Their main show doesn't really enthuse me as much. Their shows, they do where they cover Rebels, the TV show Rebels. That I like the reviews of those. Those are always really good. And they bring in a lot of guests, and the guests are usually the real winners on that. The other is when they do the Star Wars. Oh, fuck. This is terrible that I can't think of it. But they have they have a podcast that's all about the music of Star Wars that I think is just incredible. Oxygen, that's what it's called. I couldn't think of it. It had nothing to do with the term music. That's why I couldn't think of it. But with Oxygen, they're only they're not even 40 episodes in, but they haven't released an episode of Oxygen in I don't know. It's been 3-4 months. It feels like it's been forever since Oxygen came out. And there's a couple other, maybe a couple other, fair Star Wars podcasts out there, but most of them are kind of lackluster. Even Jedi Council, which is one that I listen to, that's one of those podcasts, kind of like Steve Gibson's Security Now, where as soon as it comes out, I download it and I want to listen to it right away. I may not always get to, but I try to listen to it right the fuck away. And even Jedi Council's been kind of meh. And part of the reason Jedi Council's been meh is, by the way, I love Resist the Empire podcast does not fall prey to any of my complaints that I'm talking about here. And I'm not just saying that, again, because they're a sponsor. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. But the reason Jedi Council's been meh is because they're not on top of the extraneous material in Star Wars. They offer some great news, some interesting insights on that, certainly. But then when they get to the segment that I'm kind of waiting for, because, you can talk about what's coming out in the movies all the time, right? And you're really not going to know shit until the movie comes out. So I'm not saying it's pointless to talk about that sort of stuff. I enjoy it. But the real bread and butter, or, the thing that I'm really looking forward to, I should say, is what Christian Harloff, who's the host of Collider's Jedi Council, calls What's the Deal with Canon? He does this whole funny Jerry Seinfeld voice too, and he does it. I like that. Where they talk about everything that's happening kind of in the expanded canon, outside of the movies, the comic books, the games, the novels, the whole thing. And they're way, way behind. And they haven't done a review. They said they were going to do a review of Thrawn. I did a review of Thrawn as soon as I was fucking done with the book. I was like, no, people need to know about this. And they said they didn't even like the book Thrawn, but you never really find out why. They give you some very vague reasons, but I don't know. Maybe I missed the review of Thrawn. I don't think so, because I get notifications about whenever they post any kind of fucking video. But yeah, I've been really disappointed that they're not. They come out on Thursday, so they're in a prime position because comic books come out on Wednesday. And they've said that they're going to try and remedy this, but they've yet to. And I'm guessing maybe that's why Harloff and Ken Knapsack weren't on this week's Jedi Council. Of course, I'm recording this on June 9th. We're going to get into, I'm doing a Star Wars update, in case you didn't know, and I'm going to get into talking about some Star Wars here. I'm not just going to, moan and groan about, about other Star Wars podcasts, but I'm just trying to say why I felt compelled to go ahead. All right, let's do a Star Wars update, today for the Sovereign Tech patrons. But maybe Harloff and Ken Knapsack, who are often, and I like both of those guys, I really do. Ken Knapsack's fucking awesome. Maybe they weren't on this week's Jedi Council because they had said that they were going to start going to like comic book shops on Wednesdays, and they were going to like maybe even do reviews or something from there. But they were going to start reviewing the comics like the next day because again, comic books come out on Wednesday. The show is on Thursday. You got to be able to take 20 minutes out of your day to read a fucking Star Wars comic book, even if 3 of them come out. Ooh, an hour. Come on, your Jedi Council's huge. I mean, if they didn't know that from their response at Celebration, I mean, holy shit. I'd do almost anything for that audience. God damn. So anyway, I've really been disappointed that they're not like on top of it. Because I want to hear the reviews. I want to hear their different insights. Sometimes they think of things differently than I do. Especially because, for me, like I don't have like a one-track mind, and certainly I can understand other perspectives. But I still, to this day, I don't understand the hate for the prequels. Like I kind of get it. I get some of the points. Like, yep, I get what I always understand about anything is when there's false marketing, right? Sovereign Tech kind of thrives on the fact that there's always false marketing because I get to call it out. But, like saying that episode 1 is a kid's film, and yet the first paragraph of the opening crawl is talking about, taxation of the Trade Federation and all that stuff and blockades. And, what kid is going to fucking understand that shit? If anything, a kid should never even have to hear the word taxation. But whatever. No one should ever have to hear that word again, if the future were bright. But anyway, I get some of the critiques of the prequels, but I really love those movies. I really enjoy them. But I know not everybody on on Collider's Jedi Council really enjoys those movies. And so it's kind of interesting to get that perspective from somebody that genuinely might hate those movies. I miss getting that kind of perspective on some of the latest stuff. And I think to survive on the internet, you've really got to be up to the minute on this shit. Up to the second. I mean, you've got to be fast, and it just, it's kind of not there. It's been a little disappointing. And even it's kind of weird. Like, I feel like they're skipping some of the huge stories going on, that get announced throughout the week, not just on Thursday. I haven't been very pleased with that. I haven't been very pleased with what Rebel Force Radio has been doing. Again, Resist the Empire podcast has been doing great work. I'm glad they're out there, especially since they have also a very rare perspective in the Star Wars, in Star Wars fandom, which is having that liberty-oriented perspective. And there, like I said, there's a few other shows out there that are fine, but mentioning RFR and Jedi Council, those are probably the 2 biggest Star Wars podcasts out there. So anyway, because nobody was covering this shit, I felt, covering some of what I wanted to talk about here, and I think some proverbial bombs have been dropped on the Star Wars universe just yesterday, or just Wednesday, I should say. So what would that be? The 7th? On June 7th, 2017, I think massive cannon-shaking bombs were dropped on on the Star Wars universe. So I want to be able to talk about them. And it has to actually do with the prequels. In fact, that's the most beautiful thing. So this is going to be spoiler alerts. Maybe you haven't had the chance to read these yet. Read this issue yet. I don't know. And I'm going to talk about more than just a comic book. We're going to get into some other things later on as well, because a lot of people, when I said I was going to do my review of the Last Jedi teaser trailer and I couldn't get to it, everybody's like, oh, no, do it. Okay, I'll get to it. So we'll get into that later and probably some other stuff too. But so Wednesday, a couple comics at least came out for Star Wars. There was, there was Rogue One, adaptation comic. It was issue number 3, which issue number 3 was a little weaker. Like the last Star Wars update I did, I talked about like how to experience Rogue One and how it's this gigantic story. In fact, we know now there's going to be more comic books that have to do with Rogue One coming out, not just the Rogue One adaptation, but there's going to be like a one shot of Cassian Andor and K2SO, which I'm excited about. That'll be cool. I know they've been announcing all kinds of comics that'll be coming out. There's going to be a Mace Windu comic, which I'm very excited for. All kinds of things. So especially Mace Windu, because Mace Windu is a character who I think is very, very at fault for what happens to the Jedi. So that's going to be an interesting thing. But anyway, that Rogue One comic, I'll just give you the quick review, is that it's easily the weakest issue of the bunch because it's the one that sticks closest. I felt that issue number 3 of Rogue One stuck the closest to what actually happened in the movie, and you get very little outside of it. Other than there's a beautiful moment where Saw remembers his sister that died during the episodes of the Clone Wars when you first meet Saw Gerrera. That was cool, but like that's the kind of the singular moment. I mean, you get some extra stuff, like there's more time spent on Edu, but largely it sticks pretty close to the script. And the beauty of the Rogue One adaptation has been that it's giving you a lot of deleted scenes. It's giving you stuff like perspectives that you didn't get in the movie and everything. And that's really been its joy. So we'll see how long that goes and what else happens from there. I'm kind of expecting, I'll tell you this right now, I don't have any insider information on this. I haven't heard anybody else say this. But me personally, I'm kind of expecting some kind of reveal at the end of this comic book adaptation. Like I'm kind of expecting maybe somebody to still be alive. I'm not saying that's a good idea. I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised if something like that happened, to where suddenly you find out, oh, somebody's still out there. You know, whoever the hell that may be, we don't know. But, one of the main characters from Rogue One. But anyway, so speaking of the prequels, speaking of, well, I had a great segue going, talking about the Jedi. Oh, yeah, the fall of the Jedi, Mace Windu, right? There was a comic, the big comic that came out was Darth Vader #1, which has to do with the time frame. Like, it literally takes place seconds. Or actually, it starts off with kind of the end scene of episode 3 of Revenge of the Sith. So, that alone is exciting. How close, and we didn't know, like this comic had been announced a few months ago, but I don't think anybody realized just how tight it would be to the prequel trilogy. Well, it's picking up right after it, I mean, I'm envisioning at some point, maybe in issue 2 or 3, we're actually going to get the end scene where you see Tarkin and you see the shell, that was in Revenge of the Sith. You see Tarkin and you see the shell of the Death Star. You're probably going to get that in the comic book, along with, some broader perspectives on that. So anyway, this picks up right then. The confusing part about, before I get into, again, spoiler alerts, folks, before I get into before I get into kind of the story of what goes down, I do want to say that this is a little confusing, this release, because they are just calling the comic book Darth Vader. Now, what's confusing about that is because there was already a comic by Marvel in the new canon called Darth Vader that went, 25, 26 some odd issues. And it was pretty good, I mean, it wasn't like the first few issues were fucking great. It's only when they got more towards Vader Down that I was like, this comic's getting a little weak. Then it picked up at the end again. But the confusing part is, like, they're not even calling it volume 2. They're just calling, usually when you do another #1, which, comic book companies do a lot, where, say it's the Fantastic Four or something, and they say, okay, this is volume 4, issue #1, right? It's not even volume #2. Like, there's no, you would be totally confused. You've got to be, I don't know how we're going to call this. Like, if you're talking to somebody about it, if you're talking about Darth Vader issue #1, okay, is it Darth Vader issue #1 from 2015 or 2016? Or I guess it would have been 2015. Or is it Darth Vader issue #1 from, 2017? Like, do we have to put the years on it? And I've noticed this is kind of becoming a thing. Like another series that I read by Dynamite, which is the James Bond comic book series that they've been doing, which is awesome, by the way. One of the best comic books out there right now, bar none. They recently did where they just went to a #1 again, and there's really no delineation, even though there had been like a full 12 issue previous run And it's not like it's rebooting the continuity of Dynamite's, James Bond series. They're just like, okay, no, this is number one. And I mean, I maybe they just feel that, look, the people that know will know. Right? Like the people that are fans, they're going to get it. And we don't want to put anything on the material that will keep people from buying it. Like if they think that there's anything else they need to read, they may not pick it up. And I guess I could understand that perspective. I really think that that's like somewhere it should have. I mean, I don't care how fine a lettering you got to put it in. Somewhere it should say Volume 2 or something, or they could have easily given it another name, like. I mean, the time frame that this Darth Vader comic book is covering, James Luceno wrote which was at the time was a great book, The Rise of Darth Vader, which took place in the same time frame where it's between episode 3 and 4. Call it that. Call it The Rise of Darth Vader. I'm kind of baffled. People would read the shit out of that, I would think, if they saw that tagline, and it would have made it clear that the original Rise of Darth Vader is firmly a legend story. Because The Rise of Darth Vader gets like, there was a special release of the novels, the prequel novel to episode 3, and then the post-novel, which was Rise of Darth Vader, of episode 3, and of course the novelization of episode 3, which I think all 3 were done by James Luceno. That was a special release a few years, 10 years ago. And yeah, I mean, it would help alleviate a lot of that confusion, I would think. I would have done that. So I kind of get what they're saying. And this is a great, if you've never read Star Wars comics, this is a great Star Wars comic to jump in on. It's really, really well done. So I'm letting that cat out of the bag. I was very pleased with this issue number 1. Normally I'd wait a few issues before I really review a comic book series, but so much happened. So many little things happened. I mean, really, I think they're big things. They're little things with big waves. Happened in this comic book that it's really worth talking about right now, in my opinion. So the issue, now a lot of the Star Wars comics will have, they'll be broken down into stories, and you'll get, they'll do a page, and this has been done since the 90s with the Dark Horse comics, where, the tremendous Dark Horse comics, by the way, where it will have a faux opening crawl on the first page, and this will give you, it'll give you a story header, and it'll tell you what part of it is and all. And so this issue number 1 is The Chosen One, part 1. So there's obviously going to be parts of it. And it does end on, not necessarily a cliffhanger, but it does, end with, okay, there's a lot that needs to be resolved here. And it really has to do with, at the end of the day, or, at the end of it, pretty much this story is going to be, I'm guessing more or less, is going to be about just Darth Vader getting his lightsaber. He does not have a lightsaber. In fact, you get a scene where you see, you see an Imperial procession going on where they're literally burning all of the Jedi's lightsabers. And there's this whole thing about, we find, the Emperor Palpatine saved us from the Jedi's treachery and blah, blah, blah. And now we will have freedom and everything. In fact, there's an interesting comment. Boy, I mean, there's so much to talk about in this issue. But there's an interesting comment where, Emperor Palpatine says, they don't understand what, he says, freedom. They don't understand what freedom is. He kind of does that sort of thing. And I want to hear him extrapolate on that, but I can kind of guess at what he's saying. In fact, I imagine it's a very egoist attitude, egoist as in egoism, as in Max Stirner, which you might be a little worried about that. But anyway, you sort of have to read Max Stirner to grasp what I mean by that. But anyway, so the comic book opens up with the scene, and a scene that is often derided. It's kind of called the Frankenstein's monster scene in episode 3, which is where Vader does this whole no, and he pulls himself out from the chair, or from the chair that he's in, Lord Vader, rise, all that stuff, right? And a lot of people think that scene's very cheesy. Well, kind of I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, I think it's not the best scene in the world. I would have done it a whole hell of a lot differently. And it certainly wasn't as ominous as the episode 3 trailer made it out to be, because that was one of the scenes in the trailer for episode 3 before episode 3 even came out, back in 2005. Was that 2005? Yeah. I mean, you were really expecting a very dark moment, and it kind of ended up being an afterthought and not as dark a moment as it needed to be. So it's a good idea. I'll give Marvel credit. I'll give Lucasfilm credit for wanting to address that and make that scene something more, make it a little more meaningful. And they did a good job. Like right out of the gate, they do an awesome job of where Vader is having flashbacks of him choking Padme. Spoiler alerts, folks, if you've never seen Revenge of the Sith, which it's only been out for 12 years. And in fact, like he gives one more no, and it sends the Emperor flying backwards. And the Emperor, of course, isn't happy about this. But it really makes it a more powerful scene. I think it's the way to think of it, is how it happens in the comic book. So that was a nice touch, kind of going, right out of the gate with this comic book, was sort of resolving what a lot of people think to be very cheesy. I like that. Here's the funny thing. So some people were hinting at that Vader... So there's a problem here, okay? And that is that the way that Palpatine in Episode 3 gets Vader on board, okay, with joining the dark side and becoming his apprentice, is because Anakin is having nightmares that Padme is going to die. And Vader says, well, Darth Plagueis knew how to bring people back from the dead. And so that's why he joins up. And because, of course, he also has the trauma of his mother dying, blah, blah, and he couldn't do anything about it, which is one of the best scenes of Episode 2, in my opinion. I will even stop people from dying. I love that scene. So the thing is that there's a point in the comic book where Palpatine says, not even the dark side can bring Padme back. Well, what the fuck? Like, I mean, yeah, you could say it's bait and switch, and that was all, the Emperor never had any plan to bring Padme back. Of course he didn't. But, like, Vader doesn't question that at all. That it's like, wait a second, you said blah, blah, blah. And obviously he has the power to, fuck with the Emperor. Maybe he's just biding his time or something. I kind of wonder if they're going to set this up, because you kind of get it in the book Lords of the Sith by Paul S. Kemp, which is one of the best new canon novels out there. In the book Lords of the Sith, you sort of get that that Vader is... not unwilling, but he knows he's kind of getting a raw deal, it seems like, and the Emperor's always testing him in that. So they're kind of building on that. But a lot of this, I think, does help lend to the fact that a scene where now Vader does say no, even though he didn't originally, is at the end of Return of the Jedi, where he sees, the Emperor Palpatine is using Force lightning on Luke, about to kill him, and Vader just says no. And actually, I love in the Blu-ray that they added that scene where he says no. I think it works. I know not everybody agrees with that. Is it needed? Not at all. It was perfectly epic beforehand. But now it's just making it crystal clear that, yeah, he's not going to let this happen. It pisses him off. And it ties it back. I think the no with Padme and then having the no in Return of the Jedi now, I really think that connects those 2 points. And it does it in a way, and this is something I've brought up that I've never heard anybody else bring up, but maybe other people have already thought about this. In fact, I got a reminder of 1 year ago today, you said this, on social media, and I was like, oh yeah, I did say that, and what a wild thought it was. And the thought was that, just with, and I'm not, it'd be curious to see, how to put this? Okay, so one of the eras that everybody's talking about that has yet to really been touched in the new canon is the time between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Now, there's only like 6 months in between those two movies. Okay, so there's part of the reason I think that hasn't been explored much is there's only 6 months to explore. There might not be a whole ton of stories to tell, at least not grandiose stories, like many of the novels are that often cover entire years of time. There's Leia's story, because they did like those 4, well, they've done more than 4 now, but they did those 4 like mini junior novel books that each kind of told like Smuggler's Run for Han Solo, and there were some others where it was all part of that Journey to the Force Awakens thing. The one with Leia had to do with how they got Shuttle Tydirium for Return of the Jedi. which is the shuttle that they use to get onto the moon of Endor. And it was a cool story. And actually, it's the only one of those mini books that really has to do with, like, up to the moment, like, it has, like, Kylo's birth in it. I mean, it's even though it's just this little kid's book. And it's canon, understand. I mean, it's not a kid's book. It's just a junior novel. But that's really the only time that they've touched on, on this sort of thing. I think it would be interesting because we know in Empire Strikes Back, and this is the overall point I'll get to. We know in Empire Strikes Back that Darth Vader is aware that Luke is the son of Skywalker, right? That's what he says. And of course, then we find out, that he says, Luke, I'm your, or he doesn't say, Luke, I'm your father, but he says, Luke, I'm your father. He doesn't literally say that. So he says, Luke, I'm your father. Or, we know that Vader knows that Luke is his son. At that point, he has to know that Palpatine, in the scene, this opening scene that we're talking about in the comic book, where Vader, becomes Vader and does this whole business. He knows, he has to know, Padme didn't die then. That he really didn't kill Padme. I mean, yes, you could say that, well, actually, no. Episode 3 makes it very clear. The choking didn't kill Padme. Padme, and yes, this is very cheesy. I agree with you. Padme dies of a broken heart. Okay, and she doesn't even die because of childbirth. She just dies of a broken heart. And I know George Lucas thought he was being poetic with that, but it comes off as fucking BS. Anyway, Vader has to realize, wait a minute, she didn't have the kids yet. Who the fuck had the kids? Why couldn't Palpatine bring, now you have this point in the comic book where Palpatine says the dark side can't save her and all this stuff. Like, I mean, Vader has to be realizing, and maybe that's why he makes the offer to rule the galaxy as father and son in Empire Strikes Back. Vader has to be realizing the Emperor's been lying to me this whole time. Like, straight up, I didn't kill my wife. I mean, that's huge. Nobody talks about this, that realization had to have happened, and it almost makes it weird just how much fealty that Vader pays to the Emperor in Return of the Jedi until the very end. So, but I think it's really powerful to have that bookend both trilogies. Like, it bookends the prequel trilogy with at the end of Episode 3, and now it bookends Return of the Jedi, the original trilogy. So that's powerful stuff that I think a lot of people miss, just how amazing, that kind of, that little scene is, and just how, I think, beautiful George Lucas's edition of the no at the end of Return of the Jedi by Vader really is in the Blu-ray, release of it. I think it was the right touch. I think it brings everything full circle. But yeah, I don't know how Vader, it was only 6 months between Empire and, between Empire and Return of the Jedi. It's where you have 4 years between, A New Hope, Episode 4 and Episode 6. It's going to be interesting to see how they could play on this. Like, I would love for them to do some kind of comic book with Darth Vader between Episode 5 and 6, between Empire and Return, and where he's wrestling with the fact, saying, no, motherfucker, talking about Palpatine, no, motherfucker, you lied. I didn't kill her. He may have been the impetus, but he didn't literally kill her, which is what Palpatine says to him. He says, you killed her. All that, right? So, yeah, I think this is interesting to kind of expand on that. I think it's interesting at this point in time to recenter on that moment, in the comic book, because it works. So I thought that was absolutely fascinating that they recovered kind of that moment. Now you are seeing, in this comic, like I said, there's the moment where, where they're doing the whole thing. There's the big Imperial procession on Coruscant, and they're talking about, we defeated the Jedi, blah, 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 blah. Now, some of the interesting, that's fascinating to see in itself. It really is something to kind of see this time frame between, episode 3 and episode 4, which is over a decade. And is it like 19 years? Something like that. I don't know if it's 19 years. Anyway, it's well over a decade. To see this time frame, I think, is going to be very exciting. It's one of the time frames that really needs to be explored because, It's one of those areas where you need to explain, why does episode 3 and episode 4 look so different? Yeah, we know why, because, they were made 20 years apart, but, or well, even more than that, they're made almost 30 years apart. Well, no, not 30, but like 25 years apart. But to explain it in the canon, I think could be a really interesting exploration. They talk about how there's a kind of a redress by Palpatine in this, that of what we learned in the Ahsoka book, in Star Wars Ahsoka, where you find out that, like, for a Sith, they usually don't even make their own lightsaber. They take it. In fact, they cause the crystal to bleed and turn red, which I don't mind. I think that's an okay idea. I think it's interesting. But this is that whole mission where Vader needs to go find a Jedi and he needs to steal his lightsaber. And he has to make the crystal bleed and everything. And I imagine that's going to be a very emotional moment, because Palpatine's telling Vader in the comic book, you have to, like, fuel your rage into the crystal to where it reaches its breaking point. And I want to see what exactly Vader's going to be thinking about. I mean, it's kind of obvious. You can imagine what he's thinking about, but I want to see how well they can write that. All right, to where, the rage that he's feeling that will make a crystal turn red. I think that's going to be a fascinating little exploration. So we're in for a great comic book here. But describing that, I mean, that was never known. I don't even think it was really discussed in Ahsoka. In Ahsoka, they just said, yeah, they caused the crystals to bleed, but it was never, like, implicitly said that, or implicit or explicitly said that Sith don't actually make their lightsabers. Usually, they take them. In fact, Vader even in the comic book says, you could have given me, Yoda's lightsaber. And of course, then Palpatine says, no, we don't give lightsabers, you take them. Or, well, Vader actually ends up saying that, but Palpatine kind of leads him down the thought path of that. The other cool thing in this comic book that I thought was really slick was that you get to see, Vader's armor is, again, he's getting used to it. It's new to him, right? Because this is taking place right after it gets put on him. Vader's armor has all these buttons on it, right? And, it's a machine. I mean, like, you'd think it would have a bunch of different abilities. Not everything could possibly be for life support. It'd be cool if they had some other abilities. You finally, and I don't know what took so long. Like, I really don't know what took so long in Star Wars fandom, or, in its expanded universes, whether it was Legends or the new canon or what. What took them so long to explore what some of the other abilities of Darth Vader's suit are? And you finally get that in this. You get, like, he can do a trick with the lenses, which is interesting and might be a fun way to explain why in earlier films he has, like, these red lenses, and then later on it's just pure black or something like that. So I thought that was pretty cool to finally see that. So some fascinating stuff. Like, you get to see that, that, like, those controls on Vader's belt actually do things. That's why I'm saying there's some, like, big stuff finally revealed in this about the trilogy, about the Star Wars saga as a whole. So, and the action, like, Vader is in full force here. Like, if you loved seeing what Vader did in Rogue One, at the end of Rogue One, this comic is for you, because he is just going to town. I mean, actually, it's kind of a literal statement, but he is really going to town, with his abilities in it, which I thought was really slick. And you get a look at an interesting ship that he's kind of going after. That is supposedly left for him on this planet. Somebody steals it, and he has to find it. And you get a look at the ship, and it kind of looks like was that the Scimitar, the Darth Maul's ship that, of course, also gets featured in the Lando comics. So the ship that he ends up finding looks badass. It's not his TIE Advanced X1, but I'm curious if this is some kind of special model or something. But it looks really, really cool. So anyway, I'm really excited about this comic series. It's already shaping up to be, as I just mentioned Lando. I've said that the comics have been kind of hit or miss, except for the Lando series. The Lando series was 5 issues. Each issue was dynamite. Each issue was better than the last. It was a perfect Star Wars comic. So I'm hoping that Darth Vader can kind of pick up on that. The Dr. Aphra comic that's wrapped up recently. That's also been really good, or it has also been very enjoyable because, well, for a bunch of reasons. It introduces lesbianism into Star Wars, for one. Not to say it hasn't been there before, but it does do that. In the new canon at least. I mean, there's a lot of nice things that the Dr. Aphra comic has done, and the character is just a lot of fun. Like, very sarcastic, has just a lot going for it, and it explores some interesting history of the Star Wars universe, like far back history, like 10,000 years ago kind of history. So anyway, now there is, and I don't know, the Star Wars ongoing comic, just Star Wars, which is on issue 30, 31, 33, something like that now. Which that's definitely been hit or miss. They at the end of those, they do these little stories where the artistry of the comic, it's a separate story from the rest of the comic, but it turns into kind of this little more kiddish style, almost an Archie style of comic book artistry, and they're sort of comedic stories. I don't know if those are canon. I don't know if those are considered legit because, I mean, you could say I'm looking too deep into it, maybe. But there's one at the end of the new Darth Vader comic called No Good Deed. And it's pretty funny, actually. The ones at the end of the Star Wars comic I thought were just sort of stupid. But this is genuinely funny, and it's ironic for Darth Vader to have any kind of humor. But it works. And it's a story it's all a story about Darth Vader trying to get some stuff done on board a ship. He's going to go into his meditation chamber or whatever, and his mouse droid that assists him. Those mouse droids are those little things like on the Death Star. You see them all over the place, which they're kind of comic relief in and of themselves, and so it does a good job of in this mini story. But the thing that's interesting here is there's moments where Vader's choking out Imperial officers. And he tells the mouse droid to drag the to take the body away. And the mouse droid can actually drag a human body right out of his room or, out of his chamber or whatever. And so I'm kind of wondering, is this canon? Can mouse droids really do that? Or is it all just comedy? Maybe it's just comedy. And I should ask Pablo Hidalgo, but I haven't gotten to that yet. Anyway, overall, I thought that this was, at least issue number 1 was just through the roof. It was top notch. It delivered everything you wanted. You learned new things about the Star Wars universe. You got a new perspective on certain events, and you got to see, well, this is one of the best things about Star Wars. You got to see Vader kick ass. And Palpatine's in it, which is also, I think, as I've said in the past, I think Palpatine is the secret ingredient for any great Star Wars story. You've got to either talk about him, have him in it, whatever. He always puts things over the top. And there's varying reasons for that, I think. But yeah. So anyway, Darth Vader number 1, I'll call it volume 2. Just whenever I talk about it, through a channel of Sovereign Tech. But there it is. So anyway, let's talk about, there haven't really been any new books. I talked about Rebel Rising, of course. There is the Inferno Squad, I think, comes out in July. There's nothing coming out in June, if I recall. So let's talk about that Last Jedi teaser trailer. So I thought the teaser trailer was very well done. I think it hit all the high notes that it needed to. It shows you all of the characters, that you remember from The Force Awakens. I mean, you get Poe, you get Rey, Luke's in it. Luke's talking. That was, I think, a very important thing to make sure it gets done. You have, you see Kylo Ren. You have, Finn. Thank you. You've got everybody you need to, in it that you see, and real nice touch on not actually showing Carrie Fisher's face, just to make sure that people, because I think some tears would have welled up when people were watching it and they would have seen Carrie Fisher's face or doing something in action. So to keep that low key and just kind of show the back of her, but it's her, was a really, really nice touch on that. I think that was so well thought out. And that's really the thing. This teaser trailer is very, very well thought out. The Star Wars trailers in general have, as well, I've never really seen a bad Star Wars trailer. I guess I should say that, the first time paying attention to Star Wars trailers was, I went to go see the movie. This would have been 96. I went to go see the movie Ransom with Mel Gibson. Great movie, by the way. And the trailers in the beginning, I was going with friends. I was in high school. In the beginning, there was a trailer for where it was the trailer for the special edition releases of Star Wars in theaters, which were going to come out in 97. All 3, original movies. with the new effects, of course, which I loved and I still love. And it just started off with like showing you this little 24, like you would imagine is like this little glass tube, 24-inch TV screen. It's like for an entire generation. People have experienced, like I can quote it. That's how much I watched that fucking trailer. Okay, back in 96, because you could watch it online as well. You could download it when the internet was just starting to even allow for video. It was for an entire generation. People have watched Star Wars the only way it's been possible on the TV screen. But if you've only seen it this way, then you haven't seen it at all. And then like this X-wing just blasts out of this little glass tube television, and then suddenly it takes up the entire theater screen. Right, one of the most epic, one of the greatest fucking trailers ever done. I mean, like, because you just didn't expect it, you didn't know what was happening, and at the time, you didn't have all the dirt sheets and like. I don't think anybody really knew that special editions were going to be a thing. Like, I sure as hell didn't know in Podunk, New York, and oh, fuck. I have chills right now just thinking about it. I might have to go watch it again. If you've never seen the trailers for the special editions, they are a sight to behold, especially that first one where they announced, the entire trilogy, because then they would do, mini trailers for, because Empire Strikes Back was going to, what was it in January? I think it was in January they released New Hope. February they released Empire Strikes Back, and then March of '97 they released Return of the Jedi. Man, and all of those trailers were great. Like every single one of those trailers were just so epic and fantastic. And then in '99 you ended up with the trailer for Episode 1, which, understand, the teaser trailer, the trailer for Episode 1 when that came out pretty much broke the internet. And it was an awesome trailer. Argue however you feel about Episode 1. You don't like it, whatever. Deal. I'll deal with the fact that people don't like it. But the trailer was great, especially because it just opens up with that pod race. You see the pod racer, you're getting that first person perspective, and just the music. The Star Wars thing. I mean, that was. You couldn't have done better. You could not have made a better trailer for that movie. At that time, very exciting. So then. You end up with the trailer for Episode 2, which is also a fine trailer. Then you end up with the trailer for Episode 3, which is incredibly epic. I mean, like all those trailers are fantastic. Now, when they ended up doing the trailer for The Force Awakens, of course, you have the teaser trailer for that. That was also perfect. In fact, it kind of pulled off what the Episode 1 trailer did, where, you're kind of showing like these odd scenes, quiet moments, and then suddenly, cue the classic Star Wars theme, and, they're showing the Millennium Falcon. Remember that? Where you just suddenly see the Millennium Falcon, breaking the sound barrier or whatever, and just like going way up. Obviously, we'd find out later that it's on Jakku. Best teaser trailer you could ever do. I mean, like that was just another one where they just knocked it out of the park. And then you get the full trailer. The full trailer of The Force Awakens. And yes, we will review the Last Jedi trailer here in a second. I just want to say, I'm just exploring just how amazing a job that Star Wars has over its entire lifetime, done with these trailers. Admittedly, I don't know the original trailers from like the 70s or 80s that well, but everything after that fact has been, just out of the park. I mean, it's been so good, or it's been so it's delivered all the emotions. It's delivered everything you wanted to see, and everything you needed to see, for it. So anyway, so the full trailer for The Force Awakens, just wow. I mean, you have those little moments. So you're not sure exactly what you're seeing at the time. Like you don't really know who Rey is. Even though you're seeing them and everything, but. Then when it finally, cuts in with that kind of orchestra, or, that choral version of Yoda's theme, and all that. And you have Harrison Ford, as Han Solo saying, it's true, all of it, the Jedi, well, you hear Rey first say there's stories of things that happened. And what was so amazing about that trailer was that, I got chills again, because it felt like it was respecting, saying, no, we know, Lucasfilm, Disney, saying, we know we're stepping on some holy ground here. We're dealing with something that has become absolute modern mythology. And you got that sense of richness and history, just with the way that, like how Rey says, there's stories of the things that happened. And how, Han Solo saying, it's true, all of it. Like, oh, man. That was so fucking epic. I think I keep saying epic a lot in this podcast. I apologize. But that just delivered and hit so right. So yeah, trailer for that, awesome. Trailer for Rogue One. Here's where we run into problems. Okay? Because this is the first time where what you see in a Star Wars trailer is not what you get in the movie. And the trailer for Rogue One, and I'm not the only one that says this, and I'm not going to spend any more time on it because I talked about it for an entire episode on Sovereign Tech. The trailer for Rogue One was a trailer for a different fucking film than what we saw. I love Rogue One, the movie. Don't misunderstand me. But let's be clear here. That trailer was for a very different movie. And we did not get what that trailer was showing off. We didn't end up with something bad, but we also didn't end up with what was being advertised. That is, that's a conversation that has to be had. In fact, speaking of Collider, I mentioned Collider Jedi Council earlier. This wasn't on Jedi Council. It was on one of their weekend mailbag things where they do kind of what I do with Sovereign Tech, where I do a Q&A. They do that. And a question came up about trailers, and John Campia, who I like, he made a great point, I think. He was saying, he says, do people have a case where if they go to see a movie and it is, bona fide nothing like what the trailer showed them, can they could they sue? That's a real, and I agree. I think it's really a problem. I understand you got to make trailers and you may have scenes in there that you end up removing later from a film because sometimes trailers come out a year or a year and a half or 2 years even before a movie comes out and all this. I can really understand that. But especially when you're talking about much shorter timetables than that, and when you really are getting a completely fucking different movie, and you know it. Yeah, I mean, there's a point where it becomes false advertising, and I wonder, I don't want anybody to take, because I don't believe in the justice system. Okay, I'm not saying I want anybody to take action against it, but I think that's pretty shitty. But that said, the trailer for Rogue One itself, the trailer standalone, not counting the movie, what you ended up with as a product of the movie, both are great. The trailer's great. It's just not for the movie that we saw, but the movie's great. So the record still stands that, yeah, they make great trailers for Star Wars. It's just that, holy shit, are the trailer and the movie so goddamn different. But an awesome trailer, epic trailer. Even in fact, one of my favorite scenes from it's not even a TIE fighter scene. The scene where Ben Mendelsohn, who, playing Krennic, playing Orson Krennic, where he says, it's the power we're dealing with is, immeasurable. You never got that scene. What the fuck was that scene where he's hanging out with Vader? Looked like he was hanging out with Vader on the Death Star. Not in Vader's castle, which is what you end up with in the movie. That's what I'm fucking saying. They're not the same goddamn thing. and someday, I think really, for some fandom justice, we need to see the movie that it was originally made because we didn't get it. So anyway, regardless, I'll get past that. So now enter The Last Jedi. In fact, D23 is coming up very soon. We might end up getting a trailer for Han Solo as well. Or we'll just end up getting the full trailer for Last Jedi, which I don't think would be a mistake. So Episode 8, The Last Jedi, sequel to Force Awakens. Trailer is, it's a pretty lengthy teaser trailer. Like I said, you get everything you need. You see all the characters. You know what's going on for them. You see kind of that Finn is still hurt. Great scene, Poe Dameron running, and the X-Wing explodes and all that. Probably the most powerful thing, the two most powerful things for that trailer. And they did this with The Force Awakens, where they did this choral version that wasn't even in the movie, unfortunately. You kind of have to download a rip off of YouTube if you want it, the music from the trailer, where they do the choral version of Yoda's theme. Or wait, is that Yoda's theme? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's Yoda's theme. Anyway, that's awesome. But then in The Last Jedi, when they finally hit the music, and Luke says, or Rey is saying, I see a balance, dark side light. And Luke says it's so much bigger, and then it just goes in that dun 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 dun, dun and you kind of have the rolling, the rolling thunder, what they would call rolling thunder in orchestra, go dun 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 dun. I mean, holy fuck, like every time I watch it, and I watch it over and over again. Okay, I think the trailer has like 34 million views or something. Holy fuck, I've contributed a few thousand of those, I'm sure. But every time I watch it, as soon as that music kicks in, like I kind of like stretch my arms out, and my arms are just like shaking, like yeah, because it's so awesome when they hit that cue, and it's a shame because I'm pretty sure that musical styling, because John Williams would not do that sort of thing, is going to be in the movie. What a pity, because that is fucking badass when that hits. Oh, made the whole trailer for me, because before it's a little like, well, it's kind of quiet, kind of slow. What the hell's going on here and everything. There's some interesting stuff to see, certainly. Like there's the tree, which I think is the tree from Shattered Empire, the comic book series Shattered Empire, which is new canon. And in fact, I said that a long time ago on Sovereign Tech when I was doing a review of the new canon on a Sovereign Tech Prime episode. I said, I was like, yeah, those trees at the end of Shattered Empire, those are going to be a big deal. And it's like, I don't 100% know what they are. I mean, there's one kind of in the Clone Wars TV series, but they're going to be a big deal here in the future. And yeah, I think episode 8 is going to kind of bring that to light. So anyway, that's awesome. And then, when Luke says it's time for the Jedi to end, oh man, like, yeah, you hit the note, and then they do that one more, like this really slow, epic conclusion of, kind of the Star Wars theme of sorts. And, oh man, yeah. So when he says it's time for the Jedi to end, I'll tell you, I'm hoping, I'm not going to let this go over an hour. I'm hoping that we're going to end up with kind of a gray Jedi situation where Luke is going to say, no, you need both the dark side and kind of the light. Or even if Luke goes full dark side, there's a lot of different ways that this could go, but there's going to be a very serious reinterpretation of the Force. Understand, Kylo Ren's not a Sith. He's the Knights of Ren. That's a very different situation. So I kind of want to see some return of Sith teachings, which I'm glad you're getting, like we said like I had said earlier in the Darth Vader comic, the new one, that you're going down that road. Boy, I want to see explorations of that. I am all on board for a lot of explorations of the Force in general in episode 8, which I think is something, obviously, like we talked about also with the Darth Vader comic, where they kind of fix the scene at the end of episode 3, Darth Vader's no. I think they feel like they're still in fixing things mode. And I think that they're going to try and probably fix like the whole midichlorians thing. I would love it if midichlorians got mentioned, because I loved midichlorians. I love the fact that it became a scientific principle. And even, as a teenager, me, like suddenly the Force becoming a scientific thing instead of a spiritual thing with midichlorians, that I like that a lot, because in my mind, in my little fandom brain, it said, in my little, my little nerd brain, it said that, oh, this is why we can't use the Force, on Earth, because we don't have midichlorians. Okay. Like it kind of made a lot of sense. In fact, you know what? I'll tell you. An idea that I genuinely enjoyed on Collider Jedi Council, Jeffrey Johns, is that his name? He was on there, and they were asking, like, if the Star Wars saga ever actually came to an end, what would you like it to be like? What would you like that ending to look like? Meaning, like, if the movies were finally done, blah, blah, blah. And of course, everybody said that's never going to happen, and I agree. There's no reason to ever stop making Star Wars shit. I could see where they might take a little bit of a break from the movies, and they've talked about that, but it's never going to end. Anyway, Jeffrey Johns said, he said that he'd love to see it to where, suddenly there was no more Force and humans just had to deal with, technology. Like that was the only way they got to get to things. And maybe and he didn't say this, but this has always kind of been my theory. Maybe then you would end up on Earth and you'd understand how everybody kind of got there. You'd almost get like an ancient alien hypothesis going, which is what Battlestar Galactica did, even though they failed at it. It's a good idea, but the new Battlestar Galactica by Ron Moore completely dropped the ball, failed. I mean, just ass first. As far as like delivering kind of the ancient alien hypothesis idea. So I would, or the ancient astronaut theory, whatever you want to call it. I would like to see Star Wars, like if it did have an end, I'd love to see it go that way. But that was the cool thing about midichlorians, is because you could explain why there wouldn't be why the Force wouldn't exist anymore, because you don't have what it takes to connect to it any longer with midichlorians. Also, I'd love to see kind of the Mortis trilogy get addressed more, and in fact, I'm really hoping that Mortis gets mentioned in Episode 8. I don't expect it, but I would love to see that. The Mortis trilogy was this. It's a very, very... George Lucas was knee-deep in this story, so it's not like Dave Filoni came up with this crazy idea in the Clone Wars series. It was George Lucas said, no, this is what I want. And there was like this odd battle between like a literal manifestation of good and evil inside this pyramidal diamond-shaped thing. If you've never seen it, watch it. It's fucking strange. It is a very odd... Like, there's something trying to be told there, but most people walk away from it like, what the fuck was that? You know, and I mean, this was big because, you know, Qui-Gon Jinn appears in it, and they even got Liam Neeson to do his voice. I mean, this was really serious. This was supposed to be a major turning point for Star Wars. But you end up with just a billion more questions. And I would love it if Episode 8 in some way brought some kind of closure or understanding to that. And, you know, I think the trailer kind of lent itself to doing so. I think that the trailer for The Last Jedi, even the title, really does bring some degree of closure to it, because yeah, I mean, like, the Jedi have to end. Okay, well, the Jedi, maybe they're claiming the Jedi misinterpreted the Force. You know, Barriss Offee was right. You know, that's one of my hashtags that I made, is Barriss Offee was saying that. I mean, because this has been a thing that's been going on ever since the new canon really started with Rebels, even at the end of Clone Wars, where Barriss Offee, who is this, you know, Padawan, in the Jedi Order, you know, she's saying, like, the Jedi have been consumed by the dark side. You're not supposed to be in a war. What are you guys doing? And then, of course, in Rebels, you had that amazing episode with Yoda in it, in season 2, where Yoda very clear, or was that season 3? I think it was season 2, where Yoda very clearly says, what were we doing fighting? Like, well, like that's not the way to win, you know, and all this stuff. And so finding out that the Jedi might have had it all wrong, oh man, I think that's going to be a hell of a twist. Almost as good a twist. It might be as good a twist as Luke, I am your father. I mean, obviously nothing's ever going to get hit that level, but I think it would be as earth-shattering as that is. So, yeah, the Last Jedi trailer, awesome. Everything that it's hinting at, I love the sound of. So much to like in it, and like I said, I watch it over and over again, and it's the right taste. I look forward to the full trailer. I think when the full trailer comes out, there's going to be a lot of jaws dropping. Not... Like, the Force Awakens trailer didn't really, the full trailer really didn't reveal much. It just paid, like I was saying, it paid that reverence to what came before, which was the right thing to do, in my opinion. You know, to recognize, no, we know we're dealing with the mythology, we're dealing with something holy. The Last Jedi trailer, I don't think can really get away with that. Like, it needs to tell a lot of the story. And that's why I think this is going to be, you know, this might take the cake of being, you know, the greatest trailer of them all. Though I don't know. My favorite, so if I were to rank, you know, I'm not going to give you a full ranking of the trailers. My favorite trailer of Star Wars is probably the special edition trailer, the first one, where it has the little TV in the beginning of it. Followed up, it'd be a toss-up between the Episode 1 trailer and the Force Awakens full trailer. The full trailer, not the teaser trailer, but the full trailer. It's toss up between those two, but those, man, but I think The Last Jedi, the full trailer, that could have some serious effects and ramifications. I'm looking forward to it. So, all right, that's it for this. We talked about, we got into The Last Jedi trailer, which I don't think I ever did a real full review for. We talked about all kinds of trailers. We talked about couple new comics. We talked about Rogue One. Are they going to finish up that Darth Maul comic or what? What's the holdup on that? Shattered Citadel, Screaming Citadel, not Shattered Citadel. Screaming Citadel, which I talked about, I think, in the last Star Wars update, has been a fantastic series. It's kind of a crossover between the Star Wars ongoing comic and Dr. Aphra. If you're not reading that, jump on top of that. It is a slick piece of Star Wars work. Really enjoying Screaming Citadel. So anyway, I don't know that I'll be doing another Star Wars update, at least until I listen to Inferno Squad. And that's going to be an exciting book because it appears to be somewhat of a prequel to Battlefront 2, which is coming out in October of 2017. I will be getting Battlefront 2. I will be playing Battlefront 2. So if, Sovereign Tech patrons want to get in some multiplayer action, I will be ready to do that, come October. Well, actually, I guess I have to see the specifications list first, but I'll be playing it on PC, but very excited about Battlefront 2. It looks like they're going to do everything right. I love the look of the story. There's recently some clarification in PC Gamer that this is not going to be, I'll just say this quickly, this is going to be like, you play the Imperials, you play like, in Inferno Squad, in Battlefront 2 in the single player mode is the campaign, and it's a canon story that you're going to be playing. So you want to, you might want to play it just for that. But they made it very clear that this is going to be people thinking, no, the Empire is good. And it might even show, because they describe the planet that the main character is from as being sort of an imperial utopia. And so you'll see that, no, well, guess what? Here the Empire maybe kind of worked. Of course, imperialism doesn't work, but you get my point. Okay, I'm saying within the story, within the fictional universe, you see where the Empire kind of delivered on the goods. And so these people think the Empire is the greatest thing ever. Why? Because they grew up in fucking utopia. So of course they think that way. And as best as I can tell, it's not going to end with where the main character is like, I was so wrong about the Empire. I'm going to join at the time would be either the New Republic or the Resistance or something. Good, because we don't need that. Okay, like it needs to be just like TIE Fighter was back in '94, just like you were able to do in Jedi Academy, where in Jedi Academy you could choose to be, you could take the dark path, or like in the Knights of the Old Republic games where you could choose to be, dark side, or in TIE Fighter where no, you loved being, an Imperial pilot, you knew you were doing the right thing, in your mind, in your perspective. And like you even join a secret order and you get tattoos and all this stuff and, you're really enjoying it. And there's never like this, I can't believe the Empire is so evil and all that stuff. No, you're either accepting the evil and you're enjoying the power yourself, or, you're just kind of blind to it, I guess, of the evils of the Empire, whatever. But that's the perspective I want. I want to play the villain. I don't want it to be like some honorable horseshit. I want to play the villain. I want to, and it looks like Battlefront 2 is going to deliver that, so I'm going to be all over it. And I'm going to do the pre-order. I'm not going to wait for the reviews. I'll just sight unseen. Okay, let's do this. In fact, there's a trailer for Battlefront 2 that's supposed to be airing over E3, so I might briefly mention that in a future little episode, but that's it. So, all right, I went a minute over an hour. Let's wrap it up. Of course, new Sex and Science Hour should be coming out this week, and I've got a dynamite Sovereign Tech lined up. A lot of incredible stories that I can't believe I've read that I'll be covering, and just awesome stuff going down. Actually, some good news we'll be talking about on Sovereign Tech this week, which we don't always get. So, there it is, baby. I'll see you on the other side.
You just experienced Sovereign Tech. Go to sovereigntech.com, that's SOVRYN tech.com, and connect with us there. Find links from today's show and catch our podcast feed. Sovereign Tech is copy heart. Copying art is an act of love, and love is not subject to law. So please share the show however you like. Welcome to the evolution.